make myself available to regular folks who need to reverse their diabetes, or who want to lose some weight, or who just want to feel better overall. And so that's what I've been doing. And it wasn't an idea that I thought I could monetize. It was an idea that I thought I could lend my heart.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day, and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Matthew Gray. Matthew is from Hawaii. He is a gentleman who, as he puts it, has led an uncommonly colorful and delicious life thus far. Matthew has expertise in the following areas: chef, metabolic health specialist, entrepreneurial advisor, interview consultant, author, journalist, food tour creator, radio talk show host, menu development, great ideas, passion strategies, life counseling, and he's also a great friend. For those old souls like mine who appreciate the classic rock bands, Matthew has traveled with the Eagles on their Hotel California tour straight out of high school. After that, Fleetwood Mac, and then Pink Floyd. What comes next, you might wonder? Well, Matthew became a chef, cooking for a Hollywood elite before starting Chef Matthew's Fine Foods, a line of sexy finger foods for Trader Joe's and similar establishments. Matthew as well as owned a greeting card company and the most interesting company called Pamper and Dine, which offered massage and fine dining in clients' homes, covered by People's Magazine, National Enquirer, and CNN, and New York Times. It was picked up by news outlets all over the world. Matthew's side note, he saw everyone in Hollywood naked, which is odd because he was a chef, not the masseuse of Pamper and Dine. And like he says, we better dive into this more. Matthew has many more endeavors, from talk radio with shows about some combination of food, sex, male-female dynamics, and travel, to next have to go and becoming a successful at food journalism in Hawaii. Matthew could always be counted on to speak and write the truth. Hawaii Food Tours was his next adventure, launched in 2004, his social experiment to feed, educate, and entertain hungry travelers. They were the second food tour company in the United States. However, since March 2020, due to the pandemic, have been closed. What is Matthew doing now? Well, his personal and business successes have led him to a place where he can help people realize how to attain their goals and ways to enjoy the pleasures of each day. Matthew's goal now? Well, to pay it forward. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Matthew. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Aloha, Dwight. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, aloha, and you're welcome. And thank you so much for wanting to come on my show. I'm always looking for fascinating people that have always been on the climb. And after researching you and looking into your life, you've always been on the climb. I don't think you've ever been a person that's been camped too long. You're always looking for that next great adventure. And it always seems to be around servicing and helping humankind. Right. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. So Matthew, one of the things I do is I focus on a person's origin story. For the people that are new to watching the show or listening to it, obviously the listeners that are, my loyal listeners, understand why I do it. Our life is a combination of all of our experiences from our earliest recollections. Some people just want to know, well, what happened when Matthew once he was out of school? We don't care about the rest. I do care about the rest. I think your journey started from your earliest recollections, and every decision that happened from your parents to yourself or outside influences, maybe in school, a coach, whoever, made it so that you made the decisions you've been making over the last, X amount of years of your life. So, Matthew, please tell me your origin story and what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently.
Well, I was born in New York, lived in New York until the age of 10 when my family moved to Los Angeles. Now, they didn't tell me right away, but I caught up with them eventually. And uh, and then in the early 90s, I moved here to Hawaii. So my origin story started off as a young kid in New York who used to follow his mom around in the kitchen while she prepared all these delicious foods from all over the world. So she was one of those great, wonderful housewife type of cooks. And she was interested in food and flavor and color and architecture and things like that. And she was a giver and a warm soul. And that's kind of, I guess, my uh, origin story in a nutshell, an appropriate receptacle.
Well, that's perfect. What led your mom? What was your mom's origin that she was so into food, into cooking, and like you said, architecture and colors and how everything integrates? Do you know what caused her to be like that?
I
For
think
her to
I think she was a colorful person. I think she was creative, and she didn't want to live the boring lifestyle of the 50s housewife type thing, that stereotype that so many people are aware of. And so she kind of broke out of that and always was experimenting. And, because she had her number one fan, which was me, following her around, I think that helped her out a little bit more.
and that's great because you know a parent that wants to experiment and climb in life, we pick up on that, right?
Hmm.
We pick up on that, and it helps us as part of your origin. It makes sense now after doing the research I've done in our prior conversation, hitting record. It makes sense, right? We always
Oh,
have
yeah.
that person in our lives that, good, bad, or ugly or indifferent, they help guide us to where we are today. So it makes sense because reading about you, you're very much about the experience. You're very much about being different and serving people. And your mom was the same. So that's amazing to hear. So you left New York at 10 years of age and went to Los Angeles.
Hmm.
What do you remember about that experience? Were you upset about leaving and going to Los Angeles, or did you embrace it? What were your years like up to the 90s going to Hawaii?
Well, at the age of 10, leaving New York was tough because you have your friends that you don't want to leave.
Of
And I think I
course.
actually kind of switched off, and I didn't even really tell a lot of people that we were moving, that my family was moving, because there might have been a little bit of shame involved with that. And so I remember now not really even sharing it with my friends. And my grandma, my mom's mom, passed away. And that kind of was the end of that chapter. And that's when we moved to California. And I remember the drive cross country, and I remember all the stops we made along the way, and my love of spaghetti that I would get almost every time we went to any diner along the way. And pecan pie was brand new in my life. And so I can kind of like switch my brain on to think of what flavors was I experiencing at what ages, and that kind of began my life with the whole food thing as well.
That's awesome. I can see people listening or watching, if you could, those listening, if you could see Matthew's face, it lit up. I could feel the energy because those are memories, those experience of the
Hmm.
spaghetti and the pecan pie, which I love pecan pie.
How
So,
could you not, man?
well, yeah, it's just,
Right.
and it's not that I don't like spaghetti, but pecan pie, I'm like, my gosh, that's like a kiss from heaven.
Oh
I
yeah.
love
Oh
it.
yeah.
So that's great. So it makes sense. Like, I appreciate you sharing that. So, Matthew, when I listened to your video on YouTube, you speak about being only 17 years old and touring with some of your most famous bands and histories,
Hmm.
like the Eagles. Man, I've seen them numerous times in concert, like amazing. On the Hotel California tour, I would have loved to have seen that. So you literally went to do that straight out of high school and then ended up with Fleetwood Mac and Pink Floyd. What was your influence growing up that led you to fly the coop and get into working with these bands at such a young age?
My folks were really, really loose with me. Not with my older sister, but with me, they were. So they allowed me to do whatever kind of came up. And so my neighbors across the street were working for a merchandising company representing a lot of big rock and roll bands. And they asked me if I would be interested in going out with the Eagles on tour doing merchandising. And I said, yeah, but I have to ask my parents first. And I asked them, and they said, sure, go have a great time. And they knew that I'd be growing up on the road as a young kid, and I had more fun than everybody else who was continuing school and doing whatever they went to do after school, which is maybe working at Tim Hortons or McDonald's or whatever like that. And I was on the road doing the whole drug, sex, and rock and roll thing. And so my life was completely different than almost everyone else's I knew.
Well, of course it would be. That would who would think though, right? You're living across from people and neighbors that would come over and say, "Hey, Matthew, what are you doing? You want to come? You want to come tour?" And I got to ask my mom and dad. Most
I
people
know it
would
was
think,
pretty
most people would think mom and dad are going to say no. There's no way, right? Like
right,
if that
right.
happened to me with my 5 kids, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so you were blessed to have parents that let you, you know, you know, fly, right? Eagles
They were very
reference,
loose and liberal
right?
for me, but
Yeah.
like I said, I had an older sister 4 years older than I, and they were tight with her. So um, I guess you have to kind of ebb and flow when you're a parent, depending on the gender and the personalities of your kids.
Yeah, and I think you're right, genders and personalities, but also it would probably been the generation too.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Boys were allowed to get away with more at one point in time in history than girls were. Girls
Hmm.
were treated like, sadly, treated like property or treat and very
That's right.
controlled, right?
Right.
So that could be part of the reason too, but I'm glad it happened for you because now I get to find out things. That's
Oh
great.
yeah, it was a cool time. Like you said, it was the time of society and culture being a different place and different style. And uh, I'll tell you a funny story. When I was young, right around that time when I started going out with the rock and roll bands, before then, I used to sneak girls in through my bedroom window. And so many years later, my mom said, "You know, Matthew, you really didn't have to sneak those nice young girls through your window. You should have let them in through the front door." So they knew about it the entire time.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
speaking of stories, I had put that in, this wasn't specific in regards to what you shared about sneaking girls in, but that story is awesome. I imagine you have some amazing stories throughout the period of life, like touring with those 3 bands. Tell us one of the most memorable things that transpired on that in those years of the journey of your life.
Well, when I was with the bands, I was kind of the responsible, young, smart kid. And so I wasn't very out of control, but they came to me to bail them out. My guys would get drunk and get into bar fights and get arrested. And I'd be the one to come to their rescue, bail them out, bribe the cops with merchandise from the rock and roll bands to get my guys out of jail so we can continue on the tour. So I was beyond my years and my ability to be able to schmooze and communicate and have fun and get out of difficult situations. So that's where I was at that young age, and I was able to help people out.
That's so it creates a theme though. So you're always the doer, you're the person that's in control when there's chaos going on around you to bring everybody back to center,
Well,
right? That's
that's a
what
good
it
way to put it. I always say that I'm not the instigator, I'm the equalizer. And I've always been that. So if a situation occurs or comes up and is not being handled, it falls to me and I take care of it. That's always been my personality style.
and I imagine and that's a great, there's nothing wrong with being the equalizer. That's actually a trait that I would see is a big reason why you've been always on the climb, as we talked about prior. So what would be, like you talked about getting people out of trouble, continuing to tour. Do you have any stories that you're willing to share about anything that would like wow people that happened, whether it was interaction with a band or fans that you had to deal with or just workers that you could share with us?
Well, during the tour days, there were a lot of interesting situations that occurred. And like I said, the things that I did do. But I guess something that would wow the audience would be if you knew that I almost set Robin Williams' house on fire when I was
Oh my
cooking
good.
for him. So
Oh my
that was after
goodness.
the rock and roll days, but still it was something that was kind of interesting. And,
I'd love to hear it. Yes.
God rest his soul. But I was at his house cooking. I privately cooked for a lot of people in Hollywood and rock and roll. And cooking for Robin Williams was a wild experience. And I tried to show off, like, this young chef. And I thought I'd flambe his filet mignons, and he was in the kitchen and we were talking, having fun, and I added too much cognac to the pan and it blew up in my face and caught the drapes on fire behind me, and the house started going onto fire, or there was a
Oh my
bad
gosh.
situation going on, and ended up with the fire trucks and police and all that other stuff. And I was just freaked out. I probably soiled myself during that experience, but he was great and he was fantastic and handled it well. And, we just continued the night once everything was over and done with. But that was something that sticks in my mind and will forever.
Oh, of course it would. And you're not the first person that's brought up that I've had on my show, Robin Williams. I have had a famous comedian that opened up for Robin Williams. Like, he used to be a Canadian. He's now in the US for the last 20 some years. He opened up for Robin Williams a couple times, and some of the stories he shared about Robin, it's always the same thing. He's very kind, very gracious, right? Very giving to others. So I appreciate hearing that story. I
Super
can't imagine.
bright. Really,
Super
really
bright.
bright. Most of the great comedians are really, really intelligent. Dan Aykroyd is another person I cooked for. He was with Saturday Night Live,
Yeah.
and he was kind of quiet and studious and really brilliant. And what happens with a lot of people in the entertainment world is that they really don't switch on until that camera is rolling. And when the camera's turned on, then their personalities come to life. But when you're with them face to face, eyeball to eyeball, like you and I right now, they're, quiet and thoughtful and in depth. And it's really interesting.
And I've heard that before about celebrities, whether they're actors, actresses, musicians, whatever, that, some people will say that. So you put it differently than I've heard. I've heard people say it's like they have two personalities. They have an on camera personality and they have a personality that's not off camera. So is that something that is intentional, or do you believe it's to protect themselves? Like, what would be the reasoning behind that you, from your perception?
The best way to answer that is I'm the same way. So, and I'm not really an entertainer or an actor or a famous musician, but it's just a style. It's just, when you need to turn it on, you turn it on. And the rest of the time you're recharging and re-energizing and getting your stuff together. So no one can constantly be burning the candle at both ends. And so when the cameras are rolling for me, I'm a little bit more out there and external. But when the cameras are not rolling or I'm not on a show like yours, I'm a little bit more thoughtful and quiet and creative in other fields or areas.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I love the way you put that, because I'm similar in a lot of ways. As I mentioned to you, it was prior to us recording, I believe, where I'm an introvert, but I'm extroverted when I need to be. I'm an empath. I like being in small groups as opposed to large groups. When I need to ignite a flame and be that bonfire, I can be, but I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather be
Mm-hmm.
that little flickering candle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
rather
It's
be
very
that.
similar.
Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that. Um, Interesting. Dan Aykroyd. That would be. See, you've met a lot of cool people that I've admired over the years, and it's yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
And
So
speaking about Dan Aykroyd, if you don't mind,
yeah,
I'll let you
go
know
ahead. Tell me
his
anything you
his
want.
his wife is Donna Dixon, and you might remember a sitcom show from a million years ago called Bosom Buddies,
Yeah,
the
I
first
do.
show that Tom Hanks was in,
Yeah,
and Donna Dixon was in it also. Beautiful blonde lady,
yeah,
and
I
so
know
when
who
I
she
was
is.
when I was at Dan Aykroyd and Donna Dixon's house, he was in the study, uh, and she was in the kitchen watching me like paddle around the kitchen doing my thing because she was really interested in, how a chef would move and what the choreography would be with their food and their pantry, and how I cooked and what ingredients I used and all that. So I've had a lot of very interesting experiences with people like that, and regular folks like me too. It just like it's really wonderful when you can sit and cook for somebody, I'll tell you.
Well, and Donna and Dan and Robin, they're regular folks too.
They
They're
are.
just that's the biggest thing. I've learned over my lifetime not to put any of them on a pedestal,
Right.
and understanding that even a sports athlete, like somebody that's famous in sports, like Michael Jordan, or for me in hockey, like a Wayne Gretzky, Connor McDavid, or you look at famous artists like you're talking about, they put their pants on one leg at a time, their shoes on, they live life, they have anxieties, they have depression, they have things that they worry about. And so many people approach these people fanning over them, and they wonder why they're blocked off. Not all of them are, but a lot of them are. You can see it in their body language.
Right. Right.
If you approach them as like you're talking about, she comes to see what you're cooking and you just
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation. And they love it when people's guards are down, from conversations
Right.
I've had with not as famous people as you, but people prefer that. Just treat me like, hi, I'm Joe. I'm not the famous Joe that's up on stage. I'm just Joe. Right now, I'm
Right.
just me. Back to that
Right.
two different kind of states that we operate in.
A moment ago, you mentioned some of the famous athletes that you had met, and it just brought up one of my earliest memories back when I was a little kid growing up in New York City. I got to meet Mickey Mantle in the flesh. I
Wow.
touched him. I touched his
Wow.
back. I patted him on the back, and like that is something that's been with me forever and will always be.
Oh yeah, it's amazing what we have a grasp of after the fact, and we look back, and I tell people all the time, so at that point in time, Matthew, you lived in the present. By living in that present and experiencing that, you created a memory that's life lasting. And I know it kind of sounds weird. I talk to people like the best memories are ones that set within my mindset. It's like a perpetual motion. It keeps me
Mm-hmm.
moving forward. Those great memories. Obviously, we can have memories that are negative, and trials and tribulations, but you're right. It is phenomenal what we have within our 6 inches between our ears, and we take it for granted. We take life right now that's present. You and I communicating, I'm present in this, and this is a memory for me, a
Right.
good
Right.
memory,
Exactly.
right? And I can
Yep.
feed off of that forever if I choose to look at it in the right light.
The memories that we possess and retain, along with the information that we learn throughout life, will stay deeper and more long lastingly set when it's something that is tweaking your emotional side. So if you have an emotional reaction to something, it's going to stay with you. And that's how we learn. And that's also how we remember memories, is if you were triggered in some sort of a strong emotional way. And so when you take a look back on it, it kind of makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
I learned a lot in that class. Why? Because that teacher made me feel so good because he was
The
funny or she
emotion.
was
Yeah.
right. Emotion.
Yeah, yeah, and I did a. You're gonna smile about this. I did a reel yesterday, and I posted it, and it's a snippet from an interview of a gentleman that I had on my podcast, and we're talking. He's talking about the fact um, that you cannot have an emotion without a story tied to it. And,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so simple. So the snippet's only like 45, 50 seconds, but he talks about the fact, like literally people take it for granted. But if, people listening or watching, just think about it. Every time you have an emotion, I don't care what gamut it is, happiness, sadness, anger, there's a story that created that emotion. They're
That's
tied
right.
together, and you can control your emotions by looking at that story and either giving it what it deserves, depending on what the emotion is. and that's how you can control your emotional state. But anyway, just makes me smile because you brought that up about stories and stuff. And then I just had the podcast that's live this week on Give a Heck is this gentleman, and I was posting some reels, and it was one, and the reels title is that you can't have an emotion without a story attached.
That's right, and that's why when you speak to people who are disengaged or kids who are bored in a classroom, they're never going to learn because there's no emotion going on. And when there's no emotion going on, I hosted a show recently with a lady who was doing needlepoint or something down at the bottom of the screen, and her vision, she didn't look at me in the face at all. She was like down into her needlepoint while we're doing a talk radio show. And I thought that was really rude, and she was not focused. So there was no emotional contact. There was no human connection. And I'm sure that if I wasn't feeling it, then definitely the audience wasn't.
Well, 100%. I've had, as I mentioned prior to us recording, 140 some episodes now. I've had a couple of people come on and didn't want their video on. Well, sorry, we can't record. Well, what do you mean? I'm a very visual person. I like looking at Matthew. I like connecting with people. So, if I wanted to have just an audio call, like a phone call, so I had to change that within my booking link. You must have video, right? Because
right, sure.
Bottom line, I want to see Matthew's body language. I want to see your responses. The people that listening to it aren't necessarily doing that. They have the opportunity to go to YouTube and check it out. But for me, it's imperative because I like being a student of human language, like in our body language, And so I can appreciate what you're saying. And you know what? Whose loss? It was that woman's loss, because we're not very far into knowing one another, and I feel blessed, right? So she lost out. Honestly,
you know what it is? It's like the video element allows communication, allows the fruits of the conversation to come through. And I can see your face, when I can see your smile, when I can see your eyes, whether or not it's used in mass media, doesn't really matter, but the conversation's better when you can see the other person.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of just on a phone call. This kind of completes that circle. And so being able to share that for people who learn visually or people who learn audibly is wonderful. So you have all these different platforms. You could share your world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even having, it's going to maybe sound silly to some people, but like my 5 adult kids don't all live in my community, in my city. They have Edmonton. Some live a few hours away. Some live like 10, 11 hours away. And when they call me, and sometimes they can't, I'm like, oh, you're calling me old style. Yeah. Like, because I prefer they FaceTime me or we jump on a Zoom call. Most of the times it's FaceTime. Even my grandkids, they don't call Papa anymore unless it's FaceTime. My one grandkid, he's got an old iPhone that's years old. All of a sudden, I'm sitting on the couch the other day. I wrapped up. I finished working. It was about 7:38, and I was just sitting on the couch. Got myself something to drink, and I was just going to watch a show. All of a sudden, my phone goes off. Right, call from Caden. And I bring it up and he's smiling. Hey, Papa. Right. And
that's nice.
If it was just a phone call, I wouldn't get the same energy. I honestly wouldn't, because now I'm seeing his face. Hey, Papa, how are you? I love that video. I love that video connection though. All right. So I've gotten to a point where even my clients, how about we jump on a video call? Right. How about we do that? Oh, I'll just call you. No, I'd rather jump on a video call. Because if they're sharing, let's say, some strife they're going through, I can better connect to it, as you mentioned, when I have that visual, right, of them, and I can see their body language. So I appreciate you sharing that. So, Matthew, you became a chef of a line of sexy finger foods. Who does not like finger foods? However, okay, Matthew, spill the beans. How does one make a finger food sexy?
Did you say smell the beans or spill the beans?
Spill the beans. Okay, spill the beans, not smell the beans. But hey, Matthew, if it helps you share a better story, go ahead, smell.
I don't know. I thought maybe it was like some sort of Canadian thing. I don't know.
No, spill the beans.
Uh, I went to school in London to become a chef. I went to the Cordon Bleu, which is one of the
Mm.
world famous academies for that. I didn't really know what I wanted to do after the rock and roll years. And so I thought to myself, geez, I'm getting old here. I was like 21 or 22. I've been on the road for a few years. And what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Well, I love food and I love cooking even earlier than when I learned to become a chef. And so that's what I decided to do. Went to London, became a chef, then went back to Los Angeles and started doing all the things related to uh, my degree in culinary arts. And so the Chef Matthews Fine Foods you talk about was a line of what I call sexy stuffed finger foods, like small appetizers or poo-poos or starters, depending on what part of the world you're in, you'll call it one of those things. And so I put together a few ideas and I contacted the Trader Joe's people, and that was back in the day when you needed telephones or letters, typed letters, to contact people. You didn't have this ability to do Zoom or Skype or video calling, and so you had to go out and press the flesh and meet people and make presentations all in the same room. And so I contacted them and said I had some ideas for their shops, and the Trader Joe's people said, great, we're looking for some great products. And they made an appointment with me, and I went down and I did my dog and pony show, and I fed a whole bunch of execs, and ended up getting 5 different uh, products into their shops in Southern California.
Wow. But what made it sexy?
Oh,
What was the sexy factor of it? How do you make that? So you did your dog and pony show, you got 5 accepted, and you labeled it specifically sexy finger foods.
right. Well, the presentation wasn't sexy. It was the foods that were sexy. So let me get that straight right away.
Okay, okay.
When I say sexy,
Well, we have to
it's,
know,
right,
honestly.
right. It's like, yeah, I didn't do like a strip tease. I didn't bring my stripper's pole when I presented. I just brought the foods. So
Well,
what they
thanks for the
are,
clarification. The
yeah,
visual was kind of scaring me.
right. No, I know. So, oh my God. Uh, the foods that I did for the Trader Joe's and some other high-end shops were all small stuffed items. Like my famous seller was a stuffed strawberry with a peanut butter marshmallow and toasted coconut filling, then dipped into chocolate. So that filling was totally
Wow.
obscured by the chocolate. Everyone had seen dipped strawberries in chocolate, but no one had ever stuffed them and then dipped them. So that became one of my famous items. And I had another item, which were giant prawns filled with a crab meat filling, dusted in panko
Wow.
crumbs and fried. And then on and on and on. So those are the kinds of foods that I call sexy. They're stuffed, they're finger foods. You put them in your hand, you could eat them with one hand and have a cocktail in the other. And that's what made it sexy. It was like that kind of party food, enjoyable, high-end gourmet type stuff.
So you have like you just talking about it, so, my mouth's watering. Um, Literally, so it was a visual thing as well as the fact that it was a taste experience. So,
You just said it. You just said it, Dwight. Food is sensual. Go ahead and say it.
eh,
We all
yeah.
know it's a combination of seeing it and smelling it and tasting it and touching it. Those are all sensual aspects of our world. And that was all big part of my food world growing up.
But your personality came out in the creations,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So, like that's awesome. Your passion for it is it to me it's awesome because people are so blasé about food when really it's something we have to do to survive.
Hmm.
Why not go along the emotional train along with the food? So you have a drink, you have a stuffed strawberry, that's something you never tried, and you're talking about it, you look at it, and somebody maybe tells you, or you don't even know, and you go to bite into it and you experience it, and it's like, wow. Well, now you have a body rush, right? Your taste buds, your emotions, your body, and then you're sharing it with other people. It's
Right.
like a full meal deal. I like that.
Yeah, I mean that's the grand key inside the lock is to be able to put all of those emotions and senses together along with great communication, stimulating and engaging conversation. When you add that to the food that you've spent so much heart and soul putting together, you got yourself a winner.
Yeah. Well, you're a winner, man, for doing all this stuff. Like, unbelievable. Yeah, I've never experienced somebody in my life like yourself. And I've talked to people that are chefs and
Hmm.
not even regards to the podcast, just people that are chefs and stuff. And it's very methodical. It's just they got to do this, they got to plate this, they got to do that. And they're missing the key element now that I think back on it. They're missing
Hmm.
that human connection to the
Right.
senses, right? So
Right. Right. Right.
that's amazing. Thank you for the great response. I appreciate
Oh,
that. So
sure,
are the
sure.
products there are products still out there? Obviously you're not still doing it, but are those products still available?
Only if you come to my kitchen, or if I come into your
Oh,
house, then they're
oh,
totally available. Anything you want, you can have.
oh, so
Um,
I got to invite you to Canada. Okay, I get
why
it.
not? I would like to have a couple of different beers and be able to
Oh
express
man,
myself in someone
we
else's kitchen.
you should see you should see the side note, especially my local listeners will appreciate that. We have our city of Edmonton for North America. We have the largest urban parkland in North America,
Hmm.
right? And we have um I think it's 40 some microbreweries in Edmonton
Wow.
area, right? From brewing beer and stuff. Some of the most eclectic microbreweries. So they a couple times a year they have these big um brewing events where you can go and you pay money and they give you this little and you get to go around and try all these microbrews, and it's amazing. Like some of the microbrews at these little eclectic shops, right?
Oh yeah.
Make it's just so when you brought up beer, I was like, yeah, I can appreciate that. There's, people always think of fine dining, and I'm not saying fine dining isn't associated with wine, but you know what? I know a lot of people that are very high class people in their way they present themselves, and you
Hmm.
never see them with a glass of wine. They're drinking a microbrewery brew. They're not drinking like the not saying there's anything wrong with Coors Light or any of
Hmm.
these other beers, but they're drinking something that's somebody's put their heart and soul and passion into, just like you did with food, or still do,
Right.
pardon me, right? So
Exactly.
I
Oh yeah.
appreciate that.
I
So
still
yeah.
cook to this day, and and I will take you up on visiting those microbreweries. We'll get ourselves a designated driver, and we'll have at it, my friend.
Oh, have a brother. I've only got one of my adult kids that still are in the house. I got tons of rooms. You can hang out here. We can Uber it. We don't have to worry about anything. There's
Fantastic.
they actually have I'm trying to think of the name of it. They rebranded it. The city of Edmonton rebranded it, and they used to have one of the largest breweries called Molson's. Used to be there before
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Coors bought them out. U.S. bought out Molson's, but it was a giant brewery. So they tore down that giant manufacturing facility, and now it's a brewing alley. It's all restaurants and places that all you do is they specialize in serving microbrewery, like the different to obviously promote the local people, the local business people that have developed these beers. So it's pretty
Oh
cool.
yeah. Oh yeah. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of
yeah.
pride in that. The
It's a
people who
brewery
are,
district. Like
yeah,
that's the word
yeah.
I was thinking of. It's like a brew. It's all developed around the breweries to support all these microbreweries, and it's a very intimate experience actually. And
Hmm.
depending on how you look at it, obviously other people it's just like, let's go get drunk. Right? For
You know,
me,
yeah,
it's an
beer is
experience.
interesting that it's become so artful because beer originally was just made from three ingredients, right? Barley and hops and water.
Yeah.
And now these artists and these creatives are creating the most incredible flavors
Oh
that, you'd
man.
loosely call them beer, but really they're just elixirs. And
Well, it's like I don't know if this is gonna offend people. It's like a mouth orgasm. Some that you
there you
drink.
go.
It's like
If anyone is
it's
offended
just
by that, they don't have to listen.
yeah, exactly. You can
Right.
hit pause or fast forward me, but that's okay.
Exactly.
It's there's some they are like some of them that are it's just amazing. You know, who knew the conversation would go this way? But that's
Oh
the
yeah.
joy of my show. It's a
This
conversation.
this is what you do. It can go anywhere. There's no traffic directions here.
Exactly. So I appreciate that. That's awesome. A fellow, and we can talk more about that in the near future. No problems. So Matthew, Whose brilliant idea was it to marry massage and fine dining together? Please explain to us as well why you are seeing so many people naked.
Well, seeing people naked was something that I really loved to do, but especially back then, um, when I was a young chef, and this was in the '80s. My girlfriend at that time was a masseuse, and so we thought, how can we combine our talents? And we came up with Pamper and Dine. Pamper would be the massage portion. Dine is the chef. And so we started creating a company based on massage and fine dining in our clients' homes. And we started doing that all over Southern California. Got a lot of international press, People Magazine, National Enquirer, New York Times, a lot of that kind of thing. Because it was sort of like an only in California kind of idea. And it really caught fire. And we got to work with a lot of regular folks who were enjoying their life and wanted to have something new and different, all the way on up to, well-known people who could afford that and wanted a special service. So that's where massage and fine dining came in. And where the naked people came in was, although I was in the kitchen preparing the customized gourmet dinner, the people who were being massaged by my girlfriend upstairs or back in the house somewhere would come down the staircase wrapped up in their robe after the massage, whatever. And, every now and again you grab a glimpse and, you thank goodness for that kind of stuff, right?
Hey, I have no problems with that because the biggest thing is I grew up in a very staunch Catholic family, and everything's got to be covered. It wasn't as bad as like, let's say, the Amish and stuff, where
Mm-hmm.
or the different religious faiths where everything's got to be, you can't show any skin or whatever. I grew up as a young teenager appreciating the fact of the naked body. Like, to me, I used to tell people, hey, like, what is your problem with the naked body? That is an art form, right? No two naked bodies are the same. So to me, that's art.
Exactly.
I would have been sneaking a glance too. I would have hoped once in a while that the house coat popped open.
Yeah, I don't know if I was actually sneaking any glances. I was probably, jaw-dropping glances occasionally.
Well,
So, but
there
still,
you
it was a
go.
benefit. That's a perk. When you talk about a perk in business, that was a great perk.
Exactly. Hopefully it's not in the middle of you putting ingredients together and then you forget something.
Right, right, right. Well, you have to stay focused. You try to keep your concentration going, even with all the visuals that are happening.
Oh, this is awesome. I love how our conversation is going. So, Matthew, so now your newest goal is to help people realize how to attain their goals and the ways to enjoy the pleasures of every day. You want to pay it forward, which is amazing. I love finding people in my life that are like that, are always looking to serve and pay it forward to others. So, you're doing that. What exactly are you doing for people to help them carpe diem, to seize their day?
Wow, what the heck am I doing? Well, up until 2020, I was running a famous company called Hawaii Food Tours.
Yeah.
When the COVID shit show hit, it crushed my business, and I kind of twisted in the wind like everyone else all over the world. And so it destroyed my business. I thought to myself, what am I going to do now? And so, you know, besides feeling depressed and having huge anxiety and so on, I really was thinking about what's my next step. And I thought to myself, well, I'm highly unemployable. So maybe I can just try to create some ways to help folks. And so I started learning a lot about metabolic health and science and weight loss and keto and reversing disease and things like that. And so I become a kind of like a specialist. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I know a lot more about health and nutrition than most doctors at this point. So that's what I decided to do, is just make myself available to regular folks who need to reverse their diabetes, or who want to lose some weight, or who just want to feel better overall. And so that's what I've been doing. And it wasn't an idea that I thought I could monetize. It was an idea that I thought I could lend my heart and my soul to. And so that's what I've been doing.
No, food, and no offense to doctors. I don't know, I might have doctors that listen, but they're not trained in nutrition. they're
Not
trained to
at all.
send you to a dietitian or nutritionist or whatever. And
Hmm.
those that are dietitian nutritionists, like my cousin is, she's been working in the hospital system for 30 plus years. They don't stay up to date. I find that a lot of professionals, doesn't matter what the field is, they get comfortable and they still, propagate the same broken information all the time. So it's really refreshing to hear you talk about that, because I myself am now in my fifth year of keto lifestyle. And why I did it is because my children were having nutritional issues. And as they were growing up, I started doing elimination diets to figure out what was
Hmm.
triggering migraines, triggering, um, you know, anxiety. Even foods can even trigger like anxiety episodes or
That's right.
manic episodes and cramps and stuff like that. And so I ended up getting elimination diets. And by eliminating things, I started feeling differently myself. But I went through a period of time in 2017 where I lost my granddaughter. She was 4 years old and I spiraled out of control and I started using food as comfort and I gained a lot of weight.
Hmm.
Fast forward to 2018, wasn't feeling good about myself. I was over 200 pounds and I have some health issues already with my back and spine. I got a degenerative spine disease, and all that extra weight was affecting and tearing me down, which made me depressed more, and I'd eat more. And I started researching keto, but there wasn't a lot of information out there, good
Hmm.
information. There wasn't a lot of places I could go buy keto stuff. So I had to start learning how to, be on Pinterest, Google this, try all these different recipes, baking things, cooking differently. And I wanted to be that person that was, you know, food is a science. And how am I going to, I don't want to overeat bacon. Are you kidding me? All these people are saying just live off of butter and bacon. Nah, I didn't want to do that. So I put a lot of thought process into it, lost a lot of weight. And over the years, it's been a lifestyle for me. I don't consider, everybody has a diet, whether you're North
Hmm.
American diet and you're having meat and potatoes, or you're a vegetarian, a vegan, whatever. Those listening, keto is just a different way for me to live, right? And I, am I staunch about it? Certain points and times in my life I am, and in other times I don't live so vicariously that if somebody puts down a piece of I'm at some place and they have cheesecake and I know there's sugar in it, but it looks amazing, I'm going to have that piece of cheesecake,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
my life isn't so controlled. Initially the first couple of years it was, because I was looking at staying consistent with my weight loss and I felt better. But I also learned years later, and you doing this could probably appreciate the fact that sometimes in life you have to have the ebbs and flows. You have to have that break where it's okay for you to have a cheat. If you don't even want to call it that, it's okay to have a oopsie or
You
whatever
know,
the
it
case.
I think that that's a great way to put it. I think that when it comes to moderation, which is probably the best way to handle or approach anything, that everything in moderation, even excess. And so if there's a day or two that you need to have a cheat day or whatever, but you're staying on the right road, I think that's the way to go. You can always course correct, but the idea is to remain as focused and one step and another step and that kind of thing. So just persistence and determination. Food is an emotional issue for a lot of people, but half of our audience right now, whether they're listening or watching us, are either fighting obesity or pre-diabetic or worse. And it's related to the food that they put in their bodies. And, this is something that's not really focused on in medicine, because you have big food, you have big medicine, and you have big pharma. All of them are kind of fighting us as far as like trying to maybe take away our health in some ways. And so it takes a little bit of digging and finding out the good information, which is obviously you've done now with your lifestyle. And diet has a connotation, the word diet has a connotation of a temporary kind of focus. The word lifestyle is a much more long-term, long-range type of thing. So I think you've got it right when you refer to it as lifestyle.
Yeah, and I'm constantly trying to educate people about nutrition. Even my clients, had clients I was at last night helping out a young couple young
Hmm.
kids, and we're talking about nutrition, and they ordered in food, and they said, well, what do you want? Well, this is, where are you going to order from? They sent me a menu. I want this. No, I don't want the bun. I want it this way. And they know that I've been practicing the keto lifestyle. Well, not practicing,
Right.
living it. I'm going to scratch that word, practicing it. I'm living it.
Right.
And I have more clarity. I
Oh yeah.
just have everything. I sleep better. My swelling of my joints, a lot of the problems I used to have disappeared. And when I do cheat, if I like I'm going to Europe at the end of this month for 20 days with a friend of mine that lives in Hawaii. You and I talked about it. Am I going to try some of the local stuff out that's probably not the healthiest? Absolutely.
You
I'm
bet.
not going all the way over there and not experiencing life, but I do know there's a cost, right? There is a cost to it. Even living in my city, if I have that cheesecake, I know the next day I feel a little lethargic. I can have food, depending on what I cheat with, I can have a food hangover. Yes, people
Oh
listening or
yeah.
watching, you can get a food hangover,
They
right?
know it, Dwight.
Right.
Everyone who's watching and listening to us right now knows in the middle of the afternoon when they fall asleep on the couch or in their chair, what's the reason that's happening is because of the food they're putting in their body, not because of their body clock. And so, food affects us in a big, big way. It's the biggest drug we consume is the food we put into our body. So, when you can reduce inflammation and you reduce disease, for instance, some years back, I was 100 pounds heavier than I am today. I was on 6 different medications, but I changed my lifestyle and I'm not on any medications now, and I'm at a good,
Congratulations.
normal, healthy weight. And it's all related to, I have to say, of course, luck is a great thing, but really has to do with the lifestyle. It has to do with the food that I eat.
Well,
And
yeah,
this is
and
coming from a guy who I lived my life to excess for almost my entire life. But that was fine for them, but it's not fine for the entirety. And so, getting it together is the only way
you
you
can
can really
change
feel
though.
good. Right.
Right? You
Right.
can change. You can, and it's not to promote, but it's to tell people you can give a heck. You can
Hmm.
do what my book talks about, right? My secondary title of my Give a Heck book is How to Live Life on Purpose, Not by Accident. You can
Right.
change it any way, any day, any way you want to. Take a baby step. Quit letting, as you mentioned, big pharma and everybody else control you. If you've got health issues and your doctor, instead of asking questions and suggesting you maybe change your diet to control things, is all they're doing is writing you a script, go to another doctor.
Right. Right.
Right. I'm so tired of my clients that get rated, because I also, outside of investment planning and lifestyle coaching, I also sell insurance, and my clients get rated. I got recently, and I haven't shared this on a podcast yet. I recently applied for more life insurance as an estate plan for my 5 kids. I'm 56, going to be 56 years of age, and I take CBD because I have a degenerative spine disease,
Hmm.
right? Legal. I can take CBD in our country, been around medical stuff like that's been available in our country for just about a couple decades, very prevalently used, prescribed to me by a doctor. Insurance industry doesn't recognize it, and they're going to rate me. So they're rating me because I don't want to pop prescription painkillers, ibuprofen, Tylenol, right?
Right. They're
It was
penalizing
complete.
you.
Yes, they are. They're
Yeah.
penalizing me, and unfortunately, I have to swallow it and take it if I want that product or service. But I have that happen with
Right.
my clients. They're, diabetic, or they're, some of them are controlled by nutrition. They don't understand they can control their diets. I've had people that I know that have done keto that have stopped having to get injections, right?
Right. Right.
Because their lifestyle, the crap they put inside of them, the preservatives, the chemicals, the colorings, the massive bad carbs they're taking. And those listening, there is a difference between good carbs and bad carbs, right? There is good carbs out there. Your body does need carbs to a certain extent for cell regeneration and for you to be healthy. Unfortunately, going into the grocery store, going into the restaurants, most of the stuff you're eating is not good carbs, right?
Yeah.
You need to know
Yeah.
what to selectively do. I've been reading the labels since my one daughter, who is now She's a nurse and she's in her late 20s. Since she was in junior high, I started reading labels in the grocery stores. And yes, people, it takes longer, but guess what? If the first ingredients you see are sugar or hydrogenated, this and that, run, don't hide. Do not buy it, right?
That's perfect advice, and that's what we're doing. You and I understand this, and hopefully the people who are watching or listening to us right now will kind of reach out because you and I understand how to do the lifestyle. And when you're not on meds and your body finds its normal, natural, healthy weight, and you can reverse disease, boy, there's nothing better than that because you'll be around
Oh,
longer for your loved ones.
yeah, and and then you hear from the people that say, "Well, my grandpa or my grandma lived till they were in their 90s and they smoked and drank like a chimney and they ate whatever they wanted and blah 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 blah. I'd rather go out in a flaming ball of glory like them." And I'll say to them, "Well, that's interesting." And I'm very cognizant about how to communicate with people, and I'll say, how are the last few years of their lives? Like the last,
Hmm.
let's say 5, 10 years. Oh, they were on medication, they were in the hospital, they were in a home, they were bedridden, this and this and that. Oh, so they didn't live a good quality of life. They lived till they were in their 90s. They did whatever they wanted to. Do you think that maybe there's a correlation to the end result of their life and what they
Yeah.
ate and what they put into their body?
Not only correlation, but more importantly, causation.
Yes, thank you. Causation. Yes.
And that's what really we need to pay attention to. Everybody that is on some sort of a medication or other. So when you're not on meds, boy, it's a great thing. And, just think to yourself, when was the last time you went to the doctor and the doctor asked you, what have you eaten today? Probably never. And that's because they don't get much more than a couple of hours of nutritional information schooling during their medical degree. And there's a big problem right there. So
Oh,
you have to learn.
absolutely. So I went to my doctor. I've known
Hmm.
him for 30 some years in 2018 and said, "Hey, what do you know about this keto thing?" That's why I said thing because you know what I mean. I'm hearing about it, blah, 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 blah. He looked at me and says, "Well, let's monitor you over the next year. Do it right. And don't be that." He didn't say the word, but he basically said, "Don't be an idiot and be that person that eats bacon every single freaking day. And,
Hmm.
do it within moderation and follow it." I have had clients, he said, to be real with you, that we reversed their diabetes because of ketosis, like using keto, and it is fantastic, but do it properly, right? And
Right.
I was like, okay. And yeah, over the next year, yeah, I went in and I had had my yearly physical, and a year passed, and he says this level's down. He says you've dropped like 40 pounds. He says you look healthy, your skin is healthy, everything about you. He says good for you, right? He didn't necessarily ask me how I processed it and he just encouraged me and said, hey, he didn't pretend to be an expert. He didn't even know who to send me to. He said, just be careful what you're reading. There's so much misinformation out there, and please, by gosh, don't just eat bacon every day. He said that
That
you're going to cause other problems for yourself.
sounded like he was very supportive, and it's good to have that if you can get that. But yeah, taking it upon yourself, it's amazing what you can do just by taking control of yourself. It takes a lot of focus, concentration, and
Oh my
understanding
gosh.
that's going to be a limited process of what you can put in your mouth, but it works. It's nice feeling good, you know?
And the pressure you get from people.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
come on, blah, blah. What kind of stupid thing are you doing? Like, it's not as bad now. Now there's places like Natural Market and iHerb and all these companies. You can order keto-based stuff online. There's breads that are, because at one time I was trying to figure out how to make bread because I missed it so bad.
Hmm.
But now I don't have to. I can go buy bread, right? Even Costco here sells bread that's keto friendly, and obviously it's even the stuff that's labeled. So people listening or watching, no matter what nutritional thing you're going to be on, read the labels, because just because something's stamped keto friendly doesn't mean it is.
Yeah.
That one thing you eat might be the carb limit that you can have for the day, and you don't pay attention, and you go eat something else, and you throw yourself out of ketosis. And yes, the keto flu is real. right? Depending on how long you've been on keto. For me, I just feel like a food hangover. It's not bad. Initially, it was like, oh man, this isn't good. But yeah, so just be cognizant of all labels, no matter what nutritional diet you're on, is the thing that I'll say.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to stay away from what we call the SAD diet, the standard American diet, because that whole food pyramid thing we all grew up with is just, it's ass backwards. Let's just be
Oh,
real.
it's I'm trying to think of the name. They were a husband and wife team, Fit for Life. It talked about, it was came out when it was in the 90s. They had a couple
Hmm.
books, and I believe they had a television show too. I read their books, and it talked about proper combination of foods. So the SAD diet, or the North American diet you talk about, is miscombining foods. Your body just freaks out. It triggers you to go into, depending on your body chemistry, fat storage mode. It causes you to be lethargic. You don't think properly. Your emotional response to situations isn't necessarily the best. And again, you do you, listeners or people watching, but I'm telling you, if you're having any energy loss, or you're having focal issues, or you're diabetic, nutrition can make a difference. I'm not saying it's a magic elixir, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutrition specialist. I'm talking about real life, what it's done for me and for those that I love and care for. And Matthew's prime example, right? Look at,
Oh yeah,
lose all
I
that
reversed
weight.
my type 2 and I'm not on any meds and I lost a ton of weight. So it works and I help people get past their stuff by way of
Right
eating
on.
right.
Right on, Matthew. We'll make sure that all that information is in the show notes as well, so that people can reach out to you. So,
Oh,
uh,
fantastic.
last thing I want to ask you is, Matthew, tell us about your podcast, 50 Tastes of Gray. What inspired you to do this podcast, and what can one expect when they listen to it or watch it? Pardon me.
I've been in talk radio since the 80s in one form or another. So I've been doing talk radio for a long time. After COVID hit, and when I decided I was going to start paying it forward and helping people out, I thought, maybe I should get into the podcast game since I had talk radio in my blood anyway. And once it's in your blood, you never want to let go of it. And so I thought maybe I should start a podcast. 50 Tastes of Gray is an obvious takeoff on that famous book and movie, 50 Shades of Gray, but it's not about the whole sex thing like the 50 Shades is. It's about the 50 tastes of me and the various different things that I love and admire and things that I enjoy. So 50 Tastes of Gray covers the gamut. It's a new podcast, and I talk about everything in life worth loving. So it takes a lot of the same kind of course directions that your show does. So I speak with interesting, fascinating, colorful, artistic, brilliant people and try to put that on the air and help people understand and learn and feel good about being entertained.
Sweet. That's fantastic. Listeners, currently, so we'll make sure, if you will find it on YouTube, I will make sure that, again, in the show notes, that there's a link to the website link for the YouTube channel, where you can go and check it out. In the near future, Matthew's going to have it so you can listen to it as well. But why wait? Why wait when you can, have another taste of Matthew,
It's fun. I'm having
right?
a good time with it. And just like you're having a great time with your show, it's like you're wanting to share it with others. That's what I'm wanting to do with my show as well.
Well, and I showcase people that have other podcasts all the time. Why wouldn't I? People say, well, why would you do that? You're going to take away your listeners. Oh, well,
There's
different
enough to
strokes
go
for different
around.
folks. Yeah. And if
That's
there's,
that
right,
that's that scarcity mentality, and it doesn't
I don't
work in
have
this
that.
life, right?
I
The
don't
cream
have that.
always rises to the top, Dwight. You know that.
Oh, absolutely. And bottom line, somebody that maybe they're listening to my show for the first time, and they go to your show, and I'm replaced. It was meant to be. The
Hey, there are
universe,
24
God
hours in a
has,
day.
yeah. Hey,
There's
yeah.
plenty of time.
Listen to both.
Right,
And
exactly.
bottom line, though, I think people deserve to change their nutritional lifestyle and how they live. And what a great place to start! But your show, right? To go to your show and check it out. And you're a great conversationalist. You got a great sense of humor. Like I said to you today, because it's been so new since we've been introduced to each other. I'm definitely going to check it out, because I love things that involve thinking differently, literally thinking outside the box. I know we hear that
Hmm.
statement all the time, but you've proven that you're living outside the box. You reverse your type 2 diabetes, you lost weight, and yeah, you're living the best version of you. And it don't matter what age we are, people. You can start giving a heck right now, right after you stop listening to this podcast. Right, reach out to
Perfect.
Matthew, reach out to myself if you want direction and focus.
Hmm.
I do have people that'll reach out to me, and they're nervous, they might not want to reach out to Matthew directly. I'll give you an introduction.
Hmm.
Right, if you feel comfortable with me, get a hold of me, I'll introduce you to Matthew so that you can give a heck and live a purposeful life.
That sounds great. Very generous of you too. Thank you so much. Mahalo.
You're welcome. Mahalo to you. Matthew, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Wow. It's okay to give up only momentarily, but for the most part, you've got to be persistent and determined to have a successful life. And living in the moment, being thoughtful, listening, put down the damn cell phone and look someone in the eye and listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, what a great closing message. People, the end result is be present in everything that you do, right? Tomorrow is not promised. Yesterday is gone. Be present in the moment. Um, yeah, I just did a reel about that in the last 2 days too, about people being present in the moment, because there's no promise that people understand. If you worry about what happened, depression. You worry about what hasn't happened, it's anxiety, and then you're sandwiched between the darn stuff. At the end of the day, you have a choice to live in the present moment and start by having gratitude and being grateful first thing in the morning. And when you go to bed, you woke up, be grateful. Now you have the chance to, good, bad, or ugly, hopefully more good than bad, and just practice enjoying your day, because there's no promise of tomorrow. And when you're with great people like, Matthew, be present, listen to Matthew. Don't always think about what you're going to say next. Think about what Matthew's saying. And then when Matthew's done, it doesn't take long for our brain, which is a giant computer, to go, oh, Matthew had some great, oh, this is how I want to interject now into the conversation. Don't be thinking, how am I going to respond before it's even done? Right? Be present with people. So I appreciate that ending message. Is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up the show?
You guys are always able to reach out to me, always welcome to do so. I help people out always. If you want to email me, you want to call me,
Go ahead and tell.
won't cost you a penny.
Next question was, how do people reach out to you? Right.
So
go ahead and.
One of my websites is hawaiifoodtours.com. Another one of my websites is lovelife.com. And if you want to email me, 50tastesofgray@gmail.com. And, you can just reach out to me. If you need a little bit of help, I'll help you. It won't cost you anything.
Fantastic.
I'm not here to make money off of people. I want to help people.
Well, and that's great. Yeah, the world needs more people like you, Matthew.
Thanks,
and
man.
You're welcome. I'll make sure that it goes into the show notes. For those new to the show, you can find the show notes at giveaheck.com. That's giveaheck.com. Hit on the podcast portal button, and it'll bring you into the podcast page where you will see a picture of Matthew. You'll see the show notes where you'll find the links to be able to access him easily. And feel free to reach out to me again if you want a connection and you feel more comfortable that way, because we all deserve to live a life that's intentional and on purpose, but it takes work, and mentorship can help that big time, right?
It does. This is not airy-fairy stuff we're talking here. It's real, and that's the important distinction we need to make.
Absolutely. So thanks again for being on, brother. This has been life-changing, because I get to connect with somebody that I can resonate on so many different levels, that's kind, that's got a good sense of humor, and is knowledgeable and wants to serve humankind. So thank you again for being on.
Fantastic. We'll see you soon, Dwight. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Yes. So I appreciate you being on, Matthew, and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn. It is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.